How's that, Brendan? You again from how to live free with more money, more time, and more fun. And basically, one of the things that I've learned is there's two pillars to massive wealth creation. One is business, and the other one is investment. And on the investment side of things, I use property as my primary vehicle in order to create passive income, for want of a better word. Nothing's ever really that passive, because even when you've got a property portfolio, you still need to manage the tenants, you need to invoice them, you need to manage their lease renewals, you need to manage when they're going in, when they're going out. If you've got a big enough portfolio, hopefully you've got property managers, and in which case you've got to manage the property managers and make sure that they're getting you the results that you want from your property portfolio. You also need to manage the debt, you need to manage any repairs and maintenance, you need to actually review it every once in a while so that you can see if you're on track or off track, etc., etc. So property investments, even though they're the most passive investment that I've found that serve me, there are other types of investments that are also passive, but property has definitely served me very, very, very well, but it still needs a little bit of work. On the other side of it is business. And when you reach a certain level in business, your business can actually become an investment as well. When you've got a manager or a CEO running the business for you, and you're meeting with them maybe once a quarter or once or twice a year type of thing, and the business is still growing without your input anymore, that's when your business has actually become an investment and is now no longer really a business for you at that particular time. It's still a business, but it's more of an investment from a certain perspective. So on the property side of things, if you're looking to convert active income to passive income, so I'm using passive income in the loose terms here, where you have to put a small amount of work in order to keep that portfolio running relatively well. So to convert active income, like a salary where you're selling your time for money, or where you're in a job situation that you've created for yourself as an entrepreneur, where you've got a company and you're the magic in it and you need to be there every single day to make sure that it's happening and it's working, and you want to start converting that across to more passive income through property investment. There's a couple of methods that you can use in order to evaluate how much money you're going to need to have in order to be free. And one of my mentors, Dr. Han Estrella, uses his system called the formula for riches, which is very, very effective to help you create wealth. I've used it a lot. In fact, I pretty much live by that principle, because it is very definitely a principle. It's a universal law. It's kind of like gravity. Like when you drop the pen, it falls every single time without fail. That law is written into the universe, and his formula for riches that he's figured out is written into the universe. I've not been able to challenge it in any way, shape, or form with the growth of my businesses and my investments. And one of the key factors he mentions there is your financial freedom growth rate that you require in order to become financially free. But I look at it from you need to go into that stuff and understand it in depth in order to become financially free. So I highly recommend you check out his stuff. But I want to do a simple calculation for now, just to start getting you into the mindset of converting active income to passive income. And if you're earning, let's say, 50,000 Rand a month or $5,000 a month, or whatever the currency may be, for anybody watching from outside of South Africa, if it's dollars or pounds or rands, just do the conversion for yourself. But just think of the principle more than the actual numbers. Because if you're earning $5,000 a month and your expenses are $4,000 a month, and you've got $1,000 left over, that's your surplus. Then you've got to grow that surplus first to replace the surplus, so that you're not having to take out of your monthly income in order to have that surplus. You can then have that surplus coming in passively. The next step would be then to grow your actual income, so the other 4,000. So first it's replaced the 1,000, then it's replaced the other 4,000 with passive income. So what does your growth rate need to be on your $1,000 a month to get it to replace that $1,000 a month where you don't have to work for it anymore? Then what does your growth rate need to be even further than that to replace the other 4,000? Then once you've replaced your income, that's when you're technically financially free to a degree. Then you need to say, okay, well, now I want to increase my lifestyle, and I want to be able to plan for any untoward eventualities, that type of stuff. Then you're going to say, okay, well, I want to go 2 times my active income. So what can I do to get my passive income to be 2x my active income? So if you could go from $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month that's coming in passively while still producing your $5,000 a month, yeah, that's when you truly are becoming financially free. And financial freedom is really only the first freedom on a tier of a few different types of freedom. There's financial freedom, time freedom, choice freedom, freedom of purpose. And then, if you start going through those different levels, if you've got lots of money, so you're financially free, but you have no time, are you really wealthy? You've got to have both before you can have freedom of choice. So once you've got time freedom and financial freedom, now all of a sudden you're sitting in a very powerful position where you have freedom of choice. And oftentimes people think, well, if I only had lots of time and lots of money, then I can sit on the beach and do nothing. And then all of a sudden you sit on the beach and do nothing for a year, and you get really, really bored, and you end up making videos like this so that you can help other people get rich. Because that's pretty much what I did for the last year, was sit on my butt and do nothing. I did start another offshore property investment company, and that's doing very, very well, but it requires very little time input from me, which means I can then spend a lot of time doing this. So it's my freedom of choice that's allowing me to now start helping other people do what I've done in the past. And then on top of that is freedom of purpose. So I don't actually have to sit here doing these videos. I don't have to help other people. I don't have to set up seminars like I'm doing on the 29th and 30th of April, where we've got, I think, 70 or so people already registered to come. And hopefully we'll get up to 100 if anybody decides to share this video and invite other friends and stuff. I'll post a link below this video so that if anybody wants to come to the event, they can apply to come. There is an application procedure. I'm very careful about who is allowed to come to my events. Even though it's free, I need to make sure that you really, really, really want this stuff. So anyway, let's get back to the point. And the point here is replacing first the surplus that you have. And if you have no surplus, save, start killing the debt, start finding a way to reduce your lifestyle, start doing some other stuff to create that surplus. Then start investing to create that surplus. So let's look at a future scenario and say, okay, I want it to be financially free by replacing my entire salary, let's say the $5,000 with another $5,000, so that if I wanted to stop working, I would be safe financially to be able to stop working and stop selling my time for money. For me to do that, let's say an average return on a property is 10%, right? So if, that's actually reasonably good. Most rentals are coming in at between 6 and 8% nowadays on a residential property. I'm using that as a simple example. Don't hold me to these numbers. I just want to be able to do the mental arithmetic relatively easily. So $5,000 a month at a 10% income means I need to then be able to earn, what's 5 times 12? That's $60,000 a year. And at a 10% income, if you divide the $60,000 by the 10%, you're going to come to a $600,000 asset base. So what I need to then do is say, okay, I need to grow my $1,000 a month surplus into a $600,000 asset base that is paid down, that can then pay me my $5,000 a month. Now, what's really nice about property is it usually tracks inflation, both the rental income and the capital growth. And capital growth is another whole story that we can go into at another time. I really only believe in investing for the income, but they generally both track inflation, which means if you're doing the numbers in today's money, you can generally know that even in 5 to 10 years from now, that it will be more or less the same in terms of today's money. For want of doing anything really complicated on a spreadsheet, this is just to get the principles put in place to help you start thinking about how to become financially free by replacing your active income with passive income from a property investment portfolio. So now you need to work backwards and say, okay, if an average return is 10%, that on a property portfolio that's paid down at $600,000, what rate do I need to grow my $1,000 a month surplus at in order to get to that $600,000 by a specific time period? So if you've given your goal 10 years or 5 years or 20 years, so if you give it 5 years, you need a higher rate of return. If you've given it 10 years, you need a lower rate of return. If you've given it 20 years, you need a lower rate of return. So you then work backwards to work out your financial freedom growth rate to get to that point. Now, if you can increase your competency level to get a 15% or 20% return in terms of income out of that property, what it means then, if you need to go from a 10% to a 20% return in terms of income, means you don't need a $600,000 asset base. You only need a $300,000 asset base, which means it's actually counterintuitively easier to achieve than getting to the $600,000. And that's a much bigger number that you have to then get to. So if you can increase your competency level to be able to go from a 10% return to a 20% return, means you only need to buy half the assets to get your number, to get your financial freedom number. This is phenomenal, people. This is really, really phenomenal. It means you don't actually need to go out and spend a hell of a long time buying these assets, because to acquire a $600,000 portfolio might be daunting for a lot of people. But if you can halve that by just increasing your skills to go from a 10% to a 20% return, and I promise you, 20% is definitely possible. I get a lot more than that in my investments. In fact, a hell of a lot more. It's called infinite. It means that you get a property for free, and you really can't get much better than that. And I will absolutely share the methods that I use to get free properties when, if any of you decide to come to my event on the 29th and 30th of April. But what I'm trying to get here is the principle, is that if you can increase your return, you can decrease the amount of capital assets that you require that's producing that return in order to get your financial freedom number. So that's a very, very powerful thing to start thinking about. But let's go back to it and say, okay, $600,000 is actually the number, because 10% is what you have been told is good and what you believe is possible. A lot of this stuff's belief up here in your head. So the key here is, if you decide that $600,000 is the number, and that's the asset base that you need to replace your $5,000 a month. And I'm not taking tax into account here. Let's just work with these numbers. We can do the fancy calculations with tax and inflation, all the rest of that stuff on another time, probably on that seminar day. And then I'll show you the actual number that you need if you're taking into account inflation and tax and growth and vacancy rates and all the rest of that type of stuff. Now, all you need to do is go out and buy $600,000 worth of assets and pay them down. Which means if you had the affordability out of your salary or out of your situation, whatever the case may be, to go out and buy that $600,000 worth of assets today and take out a 20-year bond, then if you did that today and you bought those assets today, in 20 years' time, because it attracts inflation, you will then be financially free. It would have replaced your active income, and you'll be out the game. And then you can say, okay, well, I bought those assets, I now own them. All I need to do is wait. Just be patient. Then the universe kind of takes care of itself. The tenants pay the property off for you. When it is paid off, you now collect the rental income for the rest of your life. And here's the bottom line. It doesn't matter what happens with technology, with disruption, with people, with whatever. People still need a place to live, because we are physically this size for now. I don't know if we're going to be able to change that technologically in the next 20 to 30 years. But I know if I'm buying property for the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years, people are generally going to be about the same size, which means they're going to need a place to live, to hide from the elements, pretty basic stuff. So I know I'll generally be okay over the next kind of couple of decades. So I can then plan and say, if I'm going to take a 20-year bond, that's okay. Because when that 20 years is up and that property is paid down, I now have all of the income coming in to pay me. And what typically happens is, if you've got enough money covering the bond when you buy the property, and you don't have too much of a shortfall, whatever the case may be, is generally the rental income increases. If you've got a 5% or an 8% increase every year, eventually you start getting some passive income a lot earlier than the 20 years. I'm saying on the outside, if you go and buy that $600,000 asset today and just wait the 20 years, you're out the game, which means you're done. You guaranteed out the game in 20 years' time. Then all you have to do is, if you want to shrink the time period, if you're earning more money out of your active place, just bung it into the bond, pay them down earlier, and that's it. Then you're out. If you want to increase your lifestyle, so let's say you wanted to say, well, this is now becoming easy, I actually want another $5,000, you just go buy another $600,000 worth of assets and then wait. So now you're saying, well, I'm prepared to wait 20 or 30 or 40 years for it. So I'll go and buy $1.2 million worth of assets today, or over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, as your affordability changes and as the money comes available, etc., etc. But once you hit that number, once you've bought that $1.2 million, now effectively you've got your $10,000 a month passive income. All you have to do is wait for it. Just be patient and it will be there. And I can categorically tell you, if you can increase your skill level to be able to increase the return from a 10% to a 20%, you can halve the time, or you can halve the amount of money that you physically need to get financially free. The amount of asset related capital money that you need to be financially free. So anyway, that's my little video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and give me some feedback. I'd like some questions maybe on this feed. Let's see if anybody's enjoying these videos, and if you have any questions about property investment and how to do the calculations and how to find properties and how to vet them, what is the due diligence procedure that I go through, right from commercial property to industrial to construction to residential stuff. Whatever the case may be, ask me some questions, and then I can start preparing for that weekend seminar. And I look forward to seeing everybody that's coming there. Thank you very much. Bye.